Thank you for joining us. A recent event at the Breakers Hotel, hosted by the Palm Beach Business Group, featured prominent medical doctors and a keynote speech by Bill Faloon, the co-founder of Life Extension, an organization in the forefront of research designed to induce systemic rejuvenation. We'll learn more about the latest breakthroughs following these messages.
Human age reversal. We may be there already. Human studies are now ready to begin to confirm meaningful reversal of pathological aging processes. These clinical trials aim to alter older humans so that they function as much younger individuals. Even modest success will result in a paradigm shift that will impart enormous societal benefits, such as sparing Medicare from insolvency. Life Extension is not standing idle while 5,000 Americans die each day from age-related illnesses. Joining us are physician scientists who want to hurry up these technologies to keep people from aging to death. While Life Extension is pushing these projects forward, we need financial help to ensure these studies are carried through to fruition.
And now I have the great pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker. Bill Faloon compiled the 1,500-page medical reference book, Disease Prevention and Treatment. His latest book is Pharmacracy, How Corrupt Deals and Misguided Medical Regulations Are Bankrupting in America, and What to Do About It. He's also director and co-founder of the Life Extension Foundation. He is spearheading human age research via the Society for the Rescue of Our Elders, a new public benefit organization. The Life Extension Foundation, which has been mentioned earlier, is a nonprofit organization whose long-range goal is the radical extension of the healthy human being and human lifespan. The organization now has over 100,000 members, and each month mails 300,000 copies of the Extension magazine to newsstands, subscribers, and members. To promote Life Extension innovative medical concepts, Bill has been featured in hundreds of media appearances, including The Phil Donahue Show, The Joan Rivers Show, Tony Brown's Journal, ABC News Day One, maybe you're involved there, and Newsweek magazine. So now I'd like to bring Bill up to the podium for our keynote speech.
Thank you for those kind words. I founded an organization in 1977 that has since grown to be the world's largest consumer-based anti-aging medical group. And in the early 1980s, we identified some methods to slow aging and reduce the risk of degenerative diseases associated with growing older. And since then, these concepts have been recognized, for the most part, by the conventional medical establishment. And what our controversial position today is based on a lot of research, by the way, is that aging is a reversible condition. In other words, technologies have emerged and they've been validated in the animal model where old animals have been able to grow biologically younger. And what our mission today is to advance research in elderly people to see if we can validate the age reversal effects in people that the animals are enjoying. So the title of today's talk is, How Does Stroke Relate to Age Reversal? Well, stroke is a leading cause of disability in the United States and throughout the world for the most part, as is aging. And we're going to talk about specifically ischemic stroke, which occurs when a clot occludes blood flow to a portion of the brain. And this is an absolute epidemic. 2,000 people a day suffering an ischemic stroke. They may lose their eyesight, they may become paralyzed, cognitively impaired, and many die from the effects of acute ischemic stroke. And when you rush to an ER room, there are basically three outcomes that are going to occur. Some are fortunate enough to leave the hospital a couple days later, in some cases, in pretty good shape. Others are permanently paralyzed. They're taken to a nursing home facility where they remain for the rest of their lives. And others die. They wind up in cemeteries. Now, we believe at Life Extension that many doctors are giving up too soon and not utilizing FDA-approved therapies to reverse acute ischemic stroke. And I'm going to show you a lot of evidence to that effect in this presentation today. And the purpose is not to be critical, but to educate this group. In the event you suffer acute stroke symptoms, I'm going to let you know where to go and what to ask for when you're taken to an ER room. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of technology out there. You can't expect every single medical doctor to know about every single therapy, nor can you expect every single ER room to have access to the most advanced technologies that can reverse an acute stroke. So to give you an example, and I like to always use historic analogies when I'm making a point, in 1996, the FDA approved a drug called tissue plasminogen activator. TPA is the acronym for that. They approved that to treat acute ischemic stroke. And what that drug does is dissolve a blood clot that is occluding flow of blood to a portion of the brain. Unfortunately, 11 years later, there weren't enough hospitals using the FDA-approved drug. People were coming in by ambulance or by car, and they were becoming paralyzed right before a medical doctor's eyes, the nurse's eyes, and they weren't aggressively using the TPA drug. And so many of them wound up confined to nursing homes or cemeteries. This outraged me that medical doctors and ER staff were not recognizing the value of technologies that already existed to reverse acute stroke. This particular article in Life Extension magazine talked about a mechanical clot retrieval technology called endovascular thrombectomy. And what they do there is when the TPA is unable to dissolve the clot that's occluding blood flow to the brain, they'll insert a catheter into the femoral artery, thread it up into a cerebral artery where the blood clot exists. And they're able to literally pull the blood clot out of that cerebral artery that's occluding blood flow. And a person who's perhaps paralyzed already or becoming paralyzed, it goes in reverse. Because once you restore blood flow, if you do it in time, the stroke reverses itself. The problem is this technology is not yet available everywhere. And we got some support for this by the New England Journal of Medicine. They recognized the fact that the studies that had been done in clinical settings were showing that stroke was a reversible phenomenon. And you'll note there that in January 2015, New England Journal said, well, up to 6 hours after the onset of stroke symptoms, endovascular thrombectomy is effective. That's 2015. Well, we knew a little bit better back then in 2015 that it was effective longer than 6 hours. How did we know? We made a lot of phone calls to emergency room departments. It wasn't always easy to get through to the doctors, but we talked to some vascular interventionalists who were using thrombectomy, and they were telling us we're getting results up to 12 hours after the onset of stroke. So even though the FDA labeled indication may have been only 6 hours, in the clinical setting, when an aggressive vascular interventionalist wasn't willing to give up, he was seeing results up to 12 hours. Well, 2.5 years later, major breakthrough. It made a little bit of news media coverage, but not nearly enough. Turns out that that thrombectomy procedure, the mechanical removal of a clot occluding blood flow to a portion of the brain, effective up to 24 hours after the onset of a stroke. This piece of information is so valuable. If that's all you learned today, this whole morning of discussion, it's worth it. The American Heart Association, just about a month ago, endorsed what we at Life Extension and the New England Journal of Medicine were espousing 3 years ago. So this is great news. They're suggesting that in certain cases, thrombectomy is effective 24 hours after stroke onset. And the TPA, drug-dissolving therapy, bear in mind that was approved back in 1997. Here we are 21 years later, and the American Heart Association is telling doctors and the public, use it more aggressively. You're going to start to get more results. And here's the tragedy. Starting in 2015, they could have saved a lot of people from permanent confinement to nursing homes, but they weren't doing it. And we looked at all the data to come up with a rough estimate as to how many people right now are lying in nursing homes, half their body paralyzed, they're cognitively impaired, their lives are absolutely miserable. And we estimate right now there are about 180,000 Americans who needlessly had to be confined to a nursing home because more aggressive use of TPA and thrombectomy were not incorporated. This is incredibly valuable knowledge to acquire. If you suffer stroke symptom onset, number one, go to the hospital by ambulance. You get quicker care. You also have the paramedics able to call the ER department and say, this patient looks like they're having a stroke. They can have the thrombectomy ready to go when you arrive. Very, very important. And just a couple weeks ago, front page of the Wall Street Journal announces a medical breakthrough. Thrombectomy. It's going to save a lot of lives. And that's great. We appreciate the Wall Street Journal putting it on the front page a couple weeks ago. But if you were paying attention to the medical literature, and this is what we do with our Life Extension magazine, we pay attention and we publish, you would have known this 3 years ago. It would save a lot of lives, save a lot of paralysis. This was the article, front page of the Wall Street Journal. Just a couple weeks ago, as I was preparing this presentation, I pick up the journal and I see this on the front page. I said, wow, it's finally getting some attention, long overdue attention. And that's the issue that I'm going to describe today is delay, the deadly impact of delays. Because this is just a brief chart of how long it took for stroke therapy reversal to become common medical practice. And our contention is more people are aging to death today needlessly than were dying of ischemic stroke. And the fact that you have to remember is, where is your nearest thrombectomy capable facility? Now, the previous term was comprehensive stroke center, and that meant a stroke center that was talented in using the TPA drug and or the thrombectomy. But there's some hospitals pretending to be comprehensive stroke centers, but they don't know how to do the thrombectomy yet. So the new term, and this is what the American Heart Association is recommending, is look for the nearest thrombectomy capable emergency room facility. And these are the thrombectomy capable facilities that we've been able to identify in Palm Beach County. Now, more and more of the hospitals will know how to do this. There's simply not enough trained vascular interventionalists to do it. So these are the places where you want to go now if you have stroke symptoms. And we'll have this all up on the website, so you'll be able to look this up anytime you want. But you can also actually pick up the phone and call your local hospitals and ask them, are you thrombectomy capable? These are just signs and symptoms of a stroke. You can just type those into Google, stroke symptoms, and you can find out what they are. People don't always know them, though, and if you are able to identify stroke symptoms, that gets you to the hospital faster, and time means a lot. Now, most strokes are preventable situations. These are the risk factors for stroke that can be identified with blood tests. And we advocate that everyone in this room have these kinds of blood tests done at least once a year to make sure that they're not at an increased risk of a stroke or a heart attack or cancer. All of these tests can give us information that can help us identify risk factors that you can control. And you can ask your doctor to do these tests. Life Extension does tests. We advocate passionately that once a year have these blood tests done so that if you have even one stroke risk factor, you can do something to lower that risk. And we've been advocating that our entire 41-year history. Hypertension, major stroke risk factor. And I'm looking at the people in this room, including myself, and hey, hypertension is absolutely epidemic. Look at these numbers. And these numbers, by the way, were based on the old hypertension guidelines. If you're over 65 years of age, guess what? The odds are you have higher than optimal blood pressure. And if you do, well, you're at risk for kidney failure, heart attack, stroke, loss of eyesight. These are all the problems associated with hypertensive diseases, and yet it's a controllable situation. Here's where the problem occurred. There's two different definitions for hypertension. The dictionary says abnormally high blood pressure. The dictionary definition. Medical definition, very different. It is blood pressure that's high enough that it may eventually result in health problems. And the problem is, well, hypertension is normal. You're over 65 years of age, you probably have higher than optimal blood pressure, and unfortunately, that's going to condemn you to a higher risk of stroke, heart attack, kidney failure, etc. You want to do something about it. But the bottom line to understand is hypertension is not abnormal. And where the debate occurred, and Life Extension has debated conventional authorities now for the last 30 plus years, is that doctors started treating hypertension when the systolic number reached 140 to 150 millimeters of mercury. We at Life Extension, we were looking at the published literature back in the 1980s, and it showed that people who kept their blood pressure below 120, they were having fewer heart attacks and fewer strokes. So this debate went on. I'm going to play a brief little segment of something I talked about 9 years ago to a group to take a little bit of a water break.
Low blood pressure confers longevity. Low blood pressure protects us against stroke, heart attack, kidney failure. So again, we are battling nature tooth and nail, and we are refusing to accept what nature has in store for us.
The debate did not end in 2009. That was a biomedical conference at Nova Southeastern. I was a proponent for the low blood pressure, keeping it low. A lot of people felt, well, the data wasn't sufficient. Well, we had partial vindication in 2013. Huge meta-analysis of 18 prior studies. And they looked at people who kept their blood pressure below 120 and compared it to people whose blood pressure was 120 to 139. And you wouldn't think that would make much of a difference. And unfortunately, most doctors weren't treating blood pressure if it was just between 120 and 139. Well, look at the results. If you had blood pressure below 120, based on this meta-analysis, a 71% reduction in your risk of stroke. Actually, if it was between 120 and 139, you had a 71% increase in your risk of stroke and about a 50% increase in your risk of heart attack. And all you had to do was lower your blood pressure below 120, and you saved yourself from this. At the end of 2017, American Heart Association comes out with a guideline that concurs with what we advocated back in the early 1980s. Optimal blood pressure for most people, not everybody, because some people unfortunately need higher blood pressure to perfuse their kidneys and their brain, and that is unfortunate, but optimal under 120. Low blood pressure confers longevity. This is a major, major fact. It's now time to use existing technology to deal with aging, and our problem is delays. Delays cause needless deaths. You look at how long it took to eradicate smallpox in Great Britain. It took over 100 years and over 100,000 people needlessly dying before they eradicated smallpox. It's very incredible. And even last century, you had 300 million people around the world die of smallpox. When every one of us was alive, there were people dying of smallpox. Hard to believe, but that's how long it takes for technology to advance. And smallpox has a lot to do with aging, because aging right now, we think, can be controlled by virtue of using young human plasma. We don't know exactly what's in the young human plasma that's going to reverse aging, but we do know that it is working in the animal model, and we suspect in humans. Smallpox was eradicated before they ever knew viruses existed. Think about that. They didn't understand that viruses existed, and yet they realized the cowpox vaccine could prevent smallpox. We know a lot more about aging today than what Edward Jenner did about smallpox. A lot more today. And when it comes to age reversal, Wall Street Journal has been giving us some interesting coverage about how to extend the lifespan of your pet. These dogs, by the way, are living longer using a drug that you can use if you choose to. Within a couple months, we're going to publish findings about how you can use this drug to live longer. But again, talking about delays, took 400 years to eradicate scurvy, which is absolutely absurd. And how people died in 1900, very different than how they died in 1996. Over a very brief time period, they eradicated bacterial infection. People started living a lot longer, and the way people died changed radically. But look how long it took, even after penicillin was identified. Look how long it took to bring it forward into clinical practice. And again, we're in that same predicament right now. Aging may be reversible, and yet people are just letting it happen. They're literally dying when they may not need to. You look at the delay even after Alexander Fleming published his work on penicillin killing bacteria. It took 18 years, tens of millions of people needlessly dying, including a heck of a lot of children, which should concern a lot of people. So what we know today, young plasma rejuvenates old animals. That is substantiated in a peer-reviewed published literature actually going back to the 1950s, and by 1972 there was enough data there to absolutely say that if you circulate young blood into old animals, the old animals will grow biologically younger. And Nature did a review of this in 2015, which sparked our interest in accelerating human research in this area, that the systemic age reversal effect of young plasma was so apparent that people started saying, we need to start testing this in people. Well, if old animals are being made biologically younger, we need to start doing this in people. Good news is the leading institutions around the world are doing research in this area. Our concern is they're not going to do it fast enough to save everybody. Johnson & Johnson put $50 million into a study to see if young plasma can be a treatment for early stage Alzheimer's disease. We appreciate all that, but again, they're going through the FDA approval process, and that's often way too slow. This study came out last year. Fascinating. They took young teenage plasma, young human plasma from teenagers, and they put it into old mice, and the old mice, they were rejuvenated. And specifically, it rejuvenated their brains. It induced neurogenesis, the formation of new brain cells in old mice in response to young plasma from human teenagers. Huge, huge advance. And these benefits were not just in the brains where they could see the brain cells growing, the animals were behaving younger. And when we do studies on human beings trying to reverse aging, we look first at clinical measures, which are blood pressure, lipids, glycemic indexes, but then we also look at the aging biomarkers, telomere length, as Tom was talking about, DNA methylation patterns, inflammatory factors, immune status. We all want that to improve, but wouldn't we like to behave younger, start behaving like a 25-year-old as opposed to the way we have to now? And it's being recognized. The media is picking up on the fact that young blood rejuvenates old animals. It's time to start doing this in people. And prestigious publications are all reviewing this, and they have pretty good scientific review boards, and they're saying, hey, why are we waiting to see if this works in people? We are losing 5,000 Americans every day, by the way, to a degenerative illness, and that is really unfortunate. We continue to see the data. Human age reversal. It's going to become an obligation of medicine at some point if we accelerate it. If we don't accelerate it, I hate to say it, a lot of people in this room won't be around to benefit. Now, an intervention that you might want to consider available right now is some technology that's being pioneered by a number of researchers that made the front cover of Time magazine this week. This week, front cover of Time magazine are talking about boosting NAD+ levels in older people in order to induce an age reversal benefit. And they're talking about something that is on the horizon, but it really isn't. It's available right now. It's available right now, and it was actually available in 2014. We wrote first about this NAD precursor that can boost NAD levels in the November 2014 issue of Life Extension magazine. Our supporters got on this, and they've been on it now for the last 4 years. We wrote another article about the benefits of boosting NAD. And by the way, this is through a dietary supplement you can buy from a number of different companies. You can go right on the internet and buy this anywhere. But I'm letting you know this is a technology you can benefit from right now. Great news. Again, this is recent stuff I'm talking about here. A number of the Silicon Valley tech giants put up $250 million, and a lot of that money is going to go to find a way to slow or reverse aging. So it's being recognized by the people in Silicon Valley who have achieved the impossible. They are viewing, I'm talking about these young tech multi-billionaires, they've used technology to accomplish the impossible, and they view human aging as just another technological challenge, and they are putting money up. The government's putting money up in order to spare Medicare from insolvency. The media is picking up on the fact that if you put enough resources into a problem, you might live for an indefinite period of time. This is what the media is reporting on, and we happen to know this is very accurate. George Church, Harvard University, he's my age. He believes within the next 5 to 10 years, CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology will enable us to reprogram our cells so we function in a youthful manner. He's talking about eradicating biological aging with his technology. He's raised over $100 million to do that, and we applaud that research. We just need to be around to take advantage of it. If we don't live long enough and they find a way to reverse aging, it doesn't do us much good. But people are putting money into it. The most famous wealthy people are recognizing aging as something that can be aggressively attacked, and they're putting their own money into it. They believe that aging will at some point become a relic of the past, just like polio, just like smallpox, just like most diseases that used to kill people. They're not around anymore. We're now confronting aging. And this came out recently. Mayo Clinic is working on a technology to produce billions of stem cells. We can't wait to see the results of their clinical research. If we just let aging take its course, we're going to wind up in this predicament. It's a horrible situation. So, do you want to be part of the control or experimental group? You got two choices. If you do nothing, you will suffer these degenerative conditions. We all do. But our objective, we aim to circumvent every single degenerative condition associated with aging. That is our purpose for the Society for the Rescue of Our Elders. The website is here. All you need to do, register, and we will keep you informed on age reversal technologies, where you can go to get them, what they cost. And again, we don't sell them. We have no financial interest. We refuse to take any kind of financial interest because that creates bias. We don't want bias. We want truth because we're running out of time. Again, the biomedical renaissance, and you know, when the Renaissance started around 1350, 1400 AD, no one knew they were beginning a renaissance. They just didn't know. But we're in that position right now. And I'm proud that it's happening, and I'm proud that I had a little bit of a role in accelerating it. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you, Bill, for a very dramatic presentation. I think you'll agree that was off the charts, really good.
Human age reversal. We may be there already. Human studies are now ready to begin to confirm meaningful reversal of pathological aging processes. These clinical trials aim to alter older humans so that they function as much younger individuals. Even modest success will result in a paradigm shift that will impart enormous societal benefits.
The preceding program was sponsored by RCP Productions Incorporated and Friends of the Shalom Show.